Thank you, Nidhi. And at the outset, I would like to thank Team Drishti for inviting me for this Winter Glaucoma Carnival. Special thanks to Dr. Amardeep ma'am and Dr. Shivam. So I'll be talking about understanding the OCT RNFL in glaucoma, a step-by-step approach. So based on the principle of interferometry, this was basically used for retina, and then down the decades, as it evolved, it started using for glaucoma as well. So it has the advantage that it is a non-invasive, non-contact, real-time, high-resolution diagnostic modality, which is a pre-perimetric test. Generally, the perimetry shows you the visual defects when the 25 to 40% of the RCTs are apoptosed. But this diagnostic modality can pick up subtle changes even at the early stages. Also, at the places where perimetry cannot be performed for that particular eye, maybe because of any coexisting molecular pathology, you can use OCT for diagnosis and even for progression. It's an objective test. It is not based upon what subject does, so it is reproducible. As many as time you do the test, you will have the same results. And then it's a quantitative measurement. So it gives you certain values which you can use to diagnose, and even progression of the patient can be calibrated on these. So it has a high sensitivity, especially when it combines with your disc photographies. There are a lot of papers in the literature regarding the same. Now, based on the scanning protocol, you have a macular scan, an RNFL scan, or an optic nerve head scan. There are certain advantages and disadvantages of all. We'll be focusing to RNFL and optic nerve head interpretation. So this is how a printout of an OCT looks like. For ease of understanding, I've divided into 9 zones. So starting with the zone 1, at the top of the printer, you can see this zone 1. It has the patient details, the name of the patient, the UHID. Now here 2 checkpoints are the age of the patient. The date of the birth of the patient should be entered correctly, because the machine compares the parameters of the patient to a age-matched normative database. So the age of the patient is very important. And then the signal strength. Anywhere you find the signal strength is less than 6, you have to repeat the scan. It's not a good idea to read the scan with a low signal strength. Like you can see here, the signal strength is 8, and the OCT looks nice and green. But as the signal strength for the other eye with same disc findings, it was 6, so you have red flags. Same example, the image is a little blurred. When the signal strength was 6, you can see that arrow pointing out to a defect, and as soon as the signal strength increases to 9, that defect, it disappears. Second is the horizontal and the vertical tomograms. You can see these are the ultrasonic images, extracts of the disc. Basically, the machine identifies that this is the cup area. The point is not working. That this is the cup area, this is the rim area. So it helps the machine to see what is the rim area, what is the cup volume, what is the VCD, and all those parameters which we talk about in glaucoma. Important is it helps you to diagnose or detect the scanning errors. If there are any missing data, or maybe say there any vitreoretinal interface, there is a big asteroid, there's a big hemorrhage, then the machine would not take the scan below that hemorrhage, and it would be flagged as red. So that you can pick up on these tomograms. Similar to that, we have a RNFL circular tomogram also. Here, you can detect the wedge shape or the arcuate defects. Basically, you can pick up the segmentation errors again. If there's a drusen, the machine would not pick up the scan below that area, so it will again flag is at red. So a normal looking retina would look, a normal looking RNFL would become a abnormal retina. Then when you see that all the parameters are okay, the scan is okay, you start reading the OCT. Now this is a parametric table. Here you can see all the parameters, say your RNFL thickness, your alpha symmetry, your cup volume, your VCDs, they are given in the form of numerical values, and for our ease, it has converted it into color coding also, where green is normal, yellow is a borderline or a thinning, and red is a established thinning. Also, you can see certain white areas when supposedly there is a PVD just at the RNFL or just at the disc. So it will count that PVD also with that thickness, and you will have a more thickness than expected. So that will be labeled as white. Or maybe when this the normative database is not available, say the patient is less than 18 years of age, so you will not have that normative database, that is also flashed at white. Then next is your zone 5. Now this is This is in a shape of a butterfly or an hourglass appearance, because we know superior and inferior RNFL, they are thicker than the nasal and temporal RNFL, and they are flagged with red and yellow colors, which are normal thickness. Any deviation of this hourglass pattern, that can be picked up and marked with cold colors like blue. Like you can see in this image, there is an RNFL defect which is being flagged with the blue color. Now there is an RNFL deviation map, that is, it will compare that how much your RNFL thickness is deviated from the normal population, and then it will give you a deviation map. Again, it is color flagged, like the first figure you can see, it is a normal looking disc. In second figure, there are slight areas of yellow, which is a moderate glaucoma, just a suspect. Then when you have red, areas more, there's a moderate glaucoma, and when you have extensive red areas, it indicates to a severe glaucoma. Now this can be of importance in high myopic patients, where the RNFL is already thinner. So in those patients, you have to be very cautious, otherwise you'll have what you call as a red disease. A normal looking RNFL would be flagged as red. There are papers in the literature which shows that there is a very low specificity of OCT in high myopic patients, because it compares a normative database with those myopic eyes. And when these normative databases were replaced by myopic databases, then the specificity was going high up to 89%. So be very cautious when you deal with high myopic patients and OCT. Next zone is neuroretinal rim thickness map. That is the area between your disc and the cup, the neuroretinal rims. Now here by convention, the right eye is continuous and the left eye is in the form of a dotted line. And it again compares the thickness, and it flashes in the which color zone it is coming. If it's in the green zone, it's normal. If it's in the yellow, it's a suspicious RNFL, NRR. And if it comes in the red zone, there is definite loss of the NRR. The next zone is your RNFL thickness. Now RNFL thickness, again, it's in the form of a double hump, or the T-SNET plot, what we say, because superiorly and inferiorly your RNFLs are thicker as compared to nasal and temporal. And any deviation of this, like you can see in the second figure, there is loss of those double humps, which show that there are superior and inferior thinning, and also the scan lies now in the yellow and the red zone. Those two lines are not in the green zone anymore. Now this scan can help you identify early localized defects, small notch, which we might miss in our busy OPDs. They can be picked up easily on these RNFL thickness or the T-SNET plots. The last is the RNFL quadrant and the clock arc. Here the machine compares the RNFL thickness and converts them into numerical values, which are also color coded again into green, yellow and red, depending upon its normal, borderline or established thickness. Now you have to be cautious about artifacts. For example, if there's a motion artifact, how can you pick up the motion artifacts? The blood vessels, as you can see, it is not in a continuous pattern. The optic disc margin, again, it is not in a continuous pattern. So you could have a clue that yes, there is a motion artifact, and you have to repeat the scan. Maybe there's a blink effect. The machine was about to take the scan, the patient blinked the eye, and the superior data was lost, and it's flagged as red. Then you can have artifacts due to floater. As I was talking about the horizontal and the vertical tomograms, you can see in that first horizontal tomogram that there is a entire black scan. That's a segmentation error. The machine did not scan the area of the disc and RNFL behind, underneath that scan. So that is flagged as red. But then green diseases, where there are subtle changes on the optic nerve head, but the machine had missed it. So that's a green disease. The machine tells that yes, it's a green, go ahead, but there actually is subtle changes on the optic nerve head. Red disease, we have already talked about. One important thing is floor effect. Now what happens in severe glaucoma cases when there's total glaucomatous optic atrophy, the RNFL plateaus down, because now what scan picks up is the residual connective tissue, the astrocytes, the blood vessels, and it will not go beyond that. It will give a stationary reading now. So it's not a good idea to do OCT in advanced cases. In such a scenario, you have to resort to your functional tests like perimetry or maybe your clinical disc evaluation. Like any other diagnostic modality, OCT also has its limitation. It will be limited when the media clarity is compromised. For example, in corneal edema, in dense cataracts, where there is massive vitreous hemorrhage or there is dense asteroid, you will not have very nice signal strengths. High astigmatism, decentered IOLs, again will compromise the quality, and it's an expensive instrument, of course, and it is not possible to do in uncooperative patients. So the take-home message is, read a reliable OCT printout. Do take care of the age of the patient which has been entered, your signal strength, the correct centration should be there. In advanced glaucoma, please do not do an OCT, unnecessarily putting a pocket on the burden on the pocket of the patient who is already dealing with a very expensive disease, glaucoma. And always relate your OCT findings with your perimetry and clinical disc findings. Thank you for your patience listening.